Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Torres. I will be your host today, joined here by my co-host, Mike Carter. Mike, how we doing today?
I'm doing okay, better than you. You got all the snow today. It's just cold here.
I'm telling you, we were kind of hoping for just at least one decent storm. So my daughter was happy. We went sledding. So we'll take it. We've been pretty lucky so far. But listen, for this episode, we are going to be talking all things St. Louis Cardinals. We have with us a fantastic guest, legendary beat writer of the Cardinals, John Denton, who covers the Cardinals for MLB.com. John, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. The only white stuff down here is the sand on the beaches. So in Florida, it's sunny and warm, and I wish we could send some warm weather your way.
Oh, it's coming at some point, right? Summer in the Midwest, humid furnace coming up. So
That's right.
All right. Well, John, let's get right to one of the biggest stories of Cardinals camp. And of course, that is Jordan Walker. So he's had a fantastic spring. And certainly seems to be in the mix for that starting left field job. But we know there's some barriers there, right? We know he's still not on the 40-man roster. And we also know that the Cardinals just have a lot of options. So, John, as we sit here today on March 14th, what do you think are the odds that Walker breaks camp with the team?
Well, I think they're greatly increased over what they were when camp started. I mean, the kid is like too good to be true. It's like he was created in a factory somewhere. He's built like a tight end. He hits like Pujols. He runs like a tailback. It's something to see. And then he's the most humble kid ever. I don't know how much you guys know about his background. His nickname in high school was the Resume. His father went to MIT. His mother went to Harvard. He had a 3.9 GPA. He had offered to Duke. It's like It's too good to be true with this kid. And he's had the best camp of anybody here with the Cardinals. They have a lot of their great players are playing in the WBC, but nobody can stack up to what the kid's done so far. First 10 games, I think he had 5 multi-hit games. I think he's played his way onto this roster. I really think maybe he came into camp 40% with a chance to make the roster. I think it's 75 to 80% now because he's been just that good. Like, he has the kind of talent that you just can't deny. This feels like Albert Pujols in 2001 all over again, where he just hit and he hit and he hit again and hit his way onto the roster. So I would put it at 85% right now.
Wow. John, I saw you write about that a couple of days ago, and I picked up on that when you were talking about the comparison to how Pujols broke in with the Cardinals and how it was eerily similar. We got to see him in the AFL when we were down there for First Pitch Arizona. And what you say is so spot on. Not only is he a physical specimen when you see him with your eyes, but then you hear him talk and you're like, whoa, this guy could be like the future face of baseball, right? Like, he's got all the tools, everything that you would want to see. What a brilliant looking player he is.
Yeah, he's just a very smart player. I mean, he's a guy who can hit a ball 470 and then he can go opposite field the other way for a single. He hit 300 every month but one last season. I mean, he's not just a one-trick pony who's going to jump on a fastball and pull it, 300 feet or 400 feet. He's a guy who's going to beat you to death with singles. He's a guy who has speed. I mean, he's beaten out 3 infield singles so far. He's stolen 2 bases. He stole 22 out of 25 bases last year. Like I said, it's like this guy was built in a factory. It's about as can't miss as Julio Rodriguez was last year with the Mariners. The kid has all the tools, and he just seems to be on this collision course with stardom.
Mike, I think that ADP is bumping back up. I feel like, he had that 2 home run game and everybody wanted Jordan Walker. They were taking him at pick 120. And then it died out a little bit because he had the shoulder thing and, it hasn't been as much news around him. But now, hearing this, I'm like, I'm all in on Jordan Walker. This is awesome to hear. Do you think, do you have any insight, John, like as far as him not being on the 40-man at this point? I don't know how the Cardinals normally operate. Like, do you see that as a barrier for him at this time?
No, because they can add him at any point. I mean, they actually waived Freddie Pacheco was picked up on waivers today by the Tigers, so now they have 39 men on the roster. So there's an availability there just in case, and I think that's a small hurdle to jump over. He'll be on the 40-man roster. He's going to be. I really think he's going to be. Not only is he going to be on the roster, if he's on the roster, he's got to play every day. And you don't call Jordan Walker up to sit on the bench. You call Jordan Walker up to play 5-6 days a week. And I think he's going to play right field 3 days a week. I think he's going to play left field 2 days a week, and I think he's going to be a DH a couple days a week. So, like I said, if he's on the roster, he's going to play, and I really think he's going to be on the roster now.
It's fascinating. John, one of the things you talk about that outfield playing time situation, and they've got a lot of options. I mean, besides Walker, who we've talked about for the first few minutes, they also have Nootbaar. They've got Carlson. They've got O'Neill. They've got other guys like Yepes and Burleson. How do you see this shaking out? I mean, I know Ali Marmol said last week that the three of those guys were competing for center field. How do you think this is going to shake out? I know that some of those guys are also in the WBC as well.
Yeah, with Nootbaar taking over the world basically in Japan, I don't know how much you guys have seen of him. He's got all of Japan doing the pepper grinder move. He's got Ohtani. He's got little kids doing it. Nootbaar is just one of the most magnetic personalities I've ever been around, and everybody loves him. The StatCast numbers all jump off the charts with him. He was in that top, 90% of hit exit velocity last year. He is also a very good walk rate guy. I think he was second in the league in walk rate. Nootbaar's going to play. He's going to be in that lineup somewhere. The one who may get pushed out is Dylan Carlson. He's hit the ball well this preseason. He put on weight. I wrote a story about how he was eating 4,500 calories a day. He put on 12 to 14 pounds. He's stronger, but he's having a problem with strikeouts still in this camp. And, Tyler O'Neill has hit the ball really well with Canada. It looks like right now, it's going to be Tyler O'Neill, Lars Nootbaar, and Jordan Walker in that outfield. Now, maybe you do a right-left platoon with Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson. Carlson's a great hitter right-handed. He's shown some progress this camp left-handed. That was a big problem last year. But, at this point, if you had to answer today, I think it may be Dylan Carlson is the guy who gets squeezed out.
That makes sense. You brought up Tyler O'Neill. What do you think happened to him last year, and what are your expectations for him going into this year?
Christopher coming off a 21, he had a tremendous season. 21, he was top 8 in the National League in MVP voting. He finished strong. He didn't get a long-term extension. That kind of put him in a bad way. Then he hurt his shoulder. Then he hurt his hamstring. Then he hurt his wrist. Then he hurt his hamstring again. So it was just one thing after another for him. Everything went wrong. He lost his arbitration case against the Cardinals. He got hurt over and over. A lot of things have changed for Tyler. He had a kid in the offseason. He stayed in St. Louis all offseason. He's in great shape. He's not quite the bodybuilder he used to be. He's more in baseball shape now. They want him in shape where he can run and he can chase down fly balls. And Tyler came to them and said, "Hey, I want to play center field." Tyler wants to make himself as valuable as possible. He wasn't trying to push Dylan Carlson out, but he was trying to just make himself valuable. And, we all know he's won 2 Gold Gloves in left field. He's got the speed that can hold up in center field. He just has to stay healthy.
John, what are you seeing out of Wilson Contreras so far this spring? He's obviously replacing what I think is a first ballot Hall of Famer in Yadi Molina. I don't know if the voters will agree. What do you think? What do you think he brings to the team this year?
He's got some edge to him. It didn't take long in camp. I think the third game in camp, he got in Dom Smith's face. Dom Smith kind of yelled at one of the Cardinal pitchers. He brings that edge. He openly says, "When you play against me, I don't want you to like me. I want you to hate me when you're playing against me." And a lot of the Cardinal guys said, "Man, we hated him when we played against him, but we like him now." He's a guy who's going to bring that edge. He's going to hit the ball. It's going to be a huge upgrade offensively at the catcher position. You just have some doubts about, can he get better at framing pitches? Can he get better at throwing out runners? Since he's debuted in the league, he leads the league by a mile in pickoffs. He'll back pick a guy at first. He'll back pick a guy at third. But can he, up that percentage of throwing guys out at second? We're going to see a big jump in stolen bases this year. If he can get close to that 35, 37, 38% range, the Cardinals are going to have they're going to have a home run on their hands because he's going to be a huge upgrade offensively.
Yeah, and speaking of stolen bases, the Cardinals are going to be relying on Tommy Edman for stolen bases, as well as fantasy players. Fantasy players are very interested in him for that. But a big question about Tommy Edman is, where's he going to hit in the lineup? Because obviously there's going to be a significant difference in his production if he's batting leadoff as opposed to ninth, as we saw a bit last year. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Christopher, a little inside baseball. Tommy said, he said, I stole 25 bases last year. And I told him, I said, well, in the minor leagues last year, stolen base attempts went up 26%. He said, okay, 26%. He thinks he can get to 45, maybe in 50 this season.
Wow.
That's a big jump. Now he is going to bat. He's still going to bat ninth. He's probably going to be in that second leadoff spot in the ninth spot because Newt Barr's on base percentage is so high. He's going to bat first, or Donovan's going to bat first. Brendan Donovan's a guy with a 380 on base percentage last year. Tommy just needs to be, if you look at his rookie year, he was a 305 guy. He was a high 300s on base percentage. Since then, he's been more in the 260 range with a mid 300 on base percentage. It's all about his on base percentage with Tommy. It's about not rolling over on ground balls and hitting the ball in the gaps and running. If he can get that on base percentage to 360, 370, he could get those 50 steals this year.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. John, one of the guys that a lot of people have questions about, not only in the baseball community, but also in the fantasy baseball community, is Jack Flaherty. This guy has shown in the past that when he's healthy, he's got ace level kind of stuff for the Cardinals. What have you seen from him so far this spring? And what are you expecting from him this year? I mean, does he look like he's healthy? Does he look like he can make 25 to 30 starts again to you?
Yeah, Mike, this is the best he's looked since the beginning of 21, and I've been open to about saying it, and Jack will agree with this. If Jack Flaherty is their ace, the Cardinals can contend for a World Series. If Jack Flaherty is their third or fourth pitcher, they're probably looking at another early exit. They're not going to be a serious contender. Jack is an X factor that can slingshot this team into contention. He showed up in great shape. This is the healthiest he's felt since the early 21 season. His slider looks really good right now. His fastball is still in that 92, 93 range. He's hoping by the end of camp that'll be 94, 95. But, when he's landing that fastball, then the slider is a wipeout pitch. And he's looked really good so far. I think he has 6 strikeouts and 4 of them have been looking. So that gives you a little bit of an indication of how good his stuff's been so far.
Sticking with the rotation, I wanted to ask about Steven Matz. I know last year, he got the free agent contract. He, the ERA, the surface stats did not look good last year. But when you look under the hood and look at some of the strikeout to walk percentage and the peripheral stats, he actually looked a little bit better. It looked like, a pretty, like the skills took a little bit of a jump forward. So I'm wondering, first, is he healthy, and what are your expectations for him this year?
He's totally healthy. He's over the knee issue. That was one of the low points of the season is Steven Matz missed 6 weeks with that shoulder injury. He came back. He was pitching great against the Reds. There's a little dribbler up the line, and he tears up his knee. That was a low point because they were counting on Steven Matz. They really needed a left-hander. He's finally healthy. Steven Matz is one of the biggest mysteries in baseball in my eyes. He is maybe the best athlete in that whole locker room, and his stuff is unbelievable. Like, people step away from the box like they can't believe how good his stuff is. But Steven will have one bad thing happen, a ball hit off somebody's glove, a hit batter, an error or something like that, and it tends to go all downhill for him. He's got to figure out a way to, move on to the next pitch. He talked about that the other day, that, his talent is too good to be a sub 500 pitcher for his career. This guy has electric stuff. He's finally healthy. I think Steven Matz could be that 12 to 13, 14 game winner this season for the Cardinals if he can put it all together and stay healthy.
Yeah, and that tendency of his to just kind of melt down after a few things go wrong, that's going back to when he was here in New York, when I watched him when he was on the Mets. Like, that's just always been an issue for him. So hopefully he can, I don't know if it's a mental coach or some way to kind of get through that, because we know the talent is there. But Mike, you're the bullpen guy, so why don't you ask John about what's going on here?
This is the question I've been dying to ask you for a couple of weeks before we got you on.
Yes, sir.
So obviously the Cardinals really walked into a great situation with Helsley last year. He was one of the best, probably 3 or 4 relief pitchers in all of baseball last year. But we also know from following Ali Marmol a little bit from a distance from where I am, it looks like he's not afraid to kind of look at playing matchups and stuff too. My question to you is this: is Helsley the full-on closer for this team, or do you see a spot where they might use him in that sort of high-leverage stopper role in the middle innings if they get themselves in a jam, because they've got Hicks and they've also got Gallegos, who's got closing experience as well? This is an inquiring minds question that fantasy baseball people want to know, John. What do you think about that one?
I think Helsley's the guy. I mean, you're going to see him with some 4-out saves and some 5-out saves, but I still think he's the guy. He's going to get 90% of the save opportunities in St. Louis. The big issue with him was last year he didn't always want to pitch on back-to-back days. He didn't want to pitch 3 times in 4 days. Availability is a big thing for Ryan. I'm sure you guys know he lost his arbitration case, and that was a big factor that the Cardinals used against him. You got to be available more. And, Ryan's still got a lot of angst about what happened, what went on in that arbitration hearing. And, part of him wants to go out and show the Cardinals that he can be that guy that can pitch on back-to-back days. And, they kind of babied him last season. They didn't want him to get hurt. He was coming off he had an arm injury. He had a knee injury. They wanted to just get him through healthy last year. He had the freakish finger injury in game 161 that messed him up the playoffs. But I think Helsley is primed for a big year. I could see those save numbers jumping in the 30, 35 range this year. He's going to get 90, 95% of the save opportunities.
I find it interesting, John, how you've brought up two arbitration cases where there seems to still be there's still some angst. I'm like, I talked about this. I don't know if it was on here or on Twitter. It's just like, why do these teams I understand it's a business and you're trying to save every dollar, but man, it seems like sometimes the fallout of these arbitration cases, not worth it. But that's just an aside.
We're in the locker rooms every day and we hear the players talking about it. They're not big fans of the system, and there is some angst but these teams have their formulas and they want to pay a guy based on what the formula tells them. And like you said, every dollar that they save, they can put towards someone else. So, but like you said, it does kind of cause some ill will, and nobody really likes it. The teams don't like it. The players don't like it. It causes that ill will, but you hope eventually it'll motivate a guy to want to pitch better.
We're coming close to the end of our time with John Denton, the legendary St. Louis Cardinals reporter for MLB.com. John, I think you're one of the longest tenured writers at MLB.com, aren't you?
No. I think you have me confused with someone else. I covered the NBA for a long time. The gray hair down here, I'm old, but I'm kind of a new guy to baseball, but I covered the NBA for a long time. This is my second year covering the Cardinals, so you may have me confused with somebody else, but man, baseball's always been my first love, and it's great to be able to cover the season we had last year with what Albert Pujols did, what Adam Wainwright did, Yadier Molina. That was a season for the ages.
It sure was. John, here's my last question for you, really. Is there a minor league guy right now that is not on the roster that might not be on the radar for fantasy league players that you are really interested in thinking could be a guy this year that makes a contribution to the team?
Yeah, if you were looking at it straight on who the players are in camp right now, Masyn Wynn has been the number 2 player behind Jordan Walker. I mean, he's the number 2 ranked player in the system. Him and Jordan Walker were roommates last year in Springfield. He's been incredible so far. They knew he had the big arm. He threw 100.5 miles an hour in the Futures game. He threw 99.9 the other day to gun down a fast runner. But he's also hit the ball really well. They're impressed with how good his bat has been. They had no clue that he was this good offensively. Paul DeJong is a guy who struggled for the last couple of years. Paul DeJong is owed a lot of money this season. If Paul struggles, I could see a scenario where the Cardinals cut bait with him and Masyn Wynn is up there, because this kid, kind of like Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker is 6'5" and tremendously talented. This kid's 5'11" and he walks around like he's 6'5". He'll puff that chest out. He's a great talker. He's full of confidence, and his his skill set is just off the charts. So he's a future star. It's just dependent on, is it going to be in 2023 or is it going to be 2024?
I saw the clip of him meeting Ozzie Smith the other day.
Yes.
That was really cool to see.
Yeah, he was a kid in the candy store. I mean, Mason's a guy who knows the history of the game, and he knew how. I mean, it's not every day you meet a 13-time Gold Glove winner, and he works with Jose Akendo every day, a Cardinal legend known as the secret weapon. So he said, "Hey, I've got Ozzie Smith in this year and Jose Akendo in this year. How can I go wrong?"
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. If you could please tell our listeners where they can find your work and where you're at on Twitter.
Yeah, MLB.com and Cardinals.com. All my stuff will be there. Twitter is at John Denton 555. I post all my stories there, and love interacting with fans. Bring any questions you have to me. But I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We would love to have you back on sometime during the season. But
sounds great.
All right. Well, take care, and we are going to take a quick break.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, John.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, John.
All right. Sounds good. See you guys.
Take care.